All 6 episodes of Loki have been released, so it's time to rank all 6 episodes from worst to best. This is of course something pretty subjective, so your list can be completely different, and that's only a good thing, right? And just something to know before we begin, if you haven't seen the final episode yet, which premiered today, don't worry, there's going to be spoilers for the first 5 episodes of Loki, not the 6th. It wasn't necessary for me to include spoilers of the latest one in this video, so if you haven't watched that one, you can watch this ranking if you want to. Hi fellow Disney Plus watchers, this is Thoughts After a Disney Plus Watch, where we review everything new Disney Plus coming out, and I'm glad you're watching. This is the channel that's specifically about movies, shows, and all that's Disney Plus original stuff. Okay, let's do it. Let's go in. On the bottom of my list is episode 3, LAMENTIS. I've seen a lot of people being not really a fan of this episode because it doesn't further the overall plot in any significant way, and that's true. If this Loki series were to be a movie, this little story on LAMENTIS would be part of it, but it would probably be one really contained action set piece. Because in essence, all that this episode basically is a detour. Loki, in an effort to lose the TVA, makes the mistake to send himself and Sylvie to the worst disaster place and time they could have gone to. And at the end of the episode, they're still on the planet and nothing significant has happened. It almost feels like a Loki spin-off, one that makes everything around it that much more special, but it's still pretty much its own thing, because it gives Loki and Sylvie the appropriate time to connect and start to understand each other, but it's still kind of a pit stop within the show. I like it. Love the look of LAMENTIS, but it's easily the least consequential, so it comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is episode 1, Glorious Purpose. An awesome introduction. This episode takes its time to show all kinds of TVA procedures, explain to us what the hell is happening, shows an animated cartoon that explains NEXUS events and the sacred timeline in a style of the Flintstones, so that's really refreshing. I love this introduction, and it absolutely met my expectations and kind of exceeded it a little bit. Mobius is instantly charismatic. Loki's way of dealing with all this nonsense around him is really fitting for his character. We get introduced to this kind of detective X-Files style of music, and there's just so much to love about this introduction episode. The number 4 spot would be episode 2, The Variant. This episode took the show to new heights. There's a lot of investigating between Mobius and Loki, and these scenes between the two of them are so enjoyable. Mobius testing Loki and trying to find out what makes him tick and what behavior set him on this path. It's all good. It's all good stuff. This episode is full of clever discoveries and detective work, weird concepts that are hard to wrap your head around if you think about it too long, but this episode presented everything in such a satisfying way. A great episode that develops a story, develops Mobius and Loki together, presents weird time concepts, and leaves us wondering what on earth Sylvie and Loki will do in the next episode. Next up is episode 5, Journey into Mystery. Probably the most expensive Marvel Disney Plus episode so far, and it's beautiful to look at because of that. Love the whole look of this void, and everything that happens here in this episode is absolutely crazy. Suddenly this show is changed from a detective mystery show into a fantasy epic where it's a crazy ride when you can put aside some really far-fetched concepts. You have to think about that, you have to put that aside. Lokis that are apparently crocodiles, the fact that everyone who is ever pruned goes to this void, and it just so happens to be the case that we only meet Lokis in this episode, apart from Mobius because he's the main character. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's really ridiculous, but I love this show for making me feel like I don't have a clue where it's headed in terms of plot. It's a great, self-contained, in and of itself, beautiful looking episode. My number 2 on the list is episode 4, The Nexus Event. This episode puts the show on its head. It completely shook up this series. The TVA is completely vulnerable now and partially exposed. The timekeepers, the big bads, were nothing but pawns apparently, so this episode, which was full of suspense and great character development for Tom Hiddleston's Loki, is also a stepping stone for something much bigger. To keep us engaged with a big throne room scene that felt a bit like the throne room conclusion from Star Wars in a way, and to completely pull the rug under our feet with that reveal that there's just something much bigger going on. These 3 beings are just androids. It elevated the show and did a great job at making me so hyped for the next 2. But the best one, in my honest opinion, is episode 6, For All Time Always. I am going to point you to my review of this 6th episode, where I dive quite deep into the psychology of this episode and the poetic nature of this conclusion. Something is popping up now if you want to watch that, because what makes this episode so damn good is the character conclusions for both Loki and Sylvie. These two together embody what it's like to choose to be a Loki, or choose to step up and step outside of what it's like to be a Loki, and the repercussions of doing that. This episode is a testament to how much Tom Hiddleston's Loki has grown since the start of the show, and also reveals something dark about Sylvie's Loki, who is still in a way stuck in her role of a Loki, and the way this contrast between them plays out in this finale is so well done. It also teases great stuff for the MCU in general, and Marvel just won't be the same again. I'm thinking about wrapping this up. Thank you so much for watching. I'd like to know, how would you rank these 6 chapters? You can share that in the comment section if you like. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the idea of discussing Disney Plus content with us, that red button looks familiar, right? And if you're interested in thoughts on individual episodes, it's all in the description, or you can browse the channel page. Did you like this video? Then be sure to consider giving it a click. Thanks. For now, have a wonderful day and see ya.